Hey, what's up guys, John here. After sitting on the sidelines for months, sellers now want to sell their homes. The problem? There are no home buyers.
That's America's housing market.
I just got done traveling all throughout America and I can testify to this. This situation is so much worse than people realize. In Miami, for example, there's 40,000 vacant apartments. In Sarasota, there's builders building 5,000, 6,000 houses in a single community. I just went to Phoenix, I went to Austin. There's cranes in the sky throughout almost everywhere in America. There's homes by the tens of thousands in some cities just sitting completely empty. We're at a 50-year high in apartment construction that's all going to hit the market in the next 12 to 18 months.
New apartment construction is soaring across parts of the United States.
It is now on track to be, in fact, a 50-year high.
And so as this is unfolding, home sellers think that it's 2021 and they can list their home for a record-breaking price in their neighborhood.
The median price for existing homes skyrocketed in June, hitting an all-time high of more than $363,000.
But they're getting a rude awakening as to what's really going on. Home buyers are no longer there. They don't want to play this game anymore. So they've opted into being a renter. And in fact, it's cheaper presently to rent in all top 50 metros in America.
Buying a home is often the American dream.
Even for the wealthier, the idea of owning a home is becoming unattainable.
Renting a home is now cheaper than buying one in all 50 of the largest U.S. cities.
That's before the 50-year high in apartment construction actually hits the market. So you start to think about this. As the world becomes more unexpected, people don't realize, what could happen in the next 3-6 months. Everything is changing, it seems like by the week in America. People aren't looking to lock into a 30-year mortgage like they were before. At least not in droves where you go to an open house and there's 200 people there and there's buyers willing to pay all cash over asking, no appraisal, no inspection, and no loan contingency. Those days are gone. The buyers now are, the millionaires that can afford it. I just saw this article on CNBC. I think a lot of people are on this page. It says you're not throwing away money on rent. It says self-made millionaire. I made more renting than I would make owning. Now, if you're a business owner, say you have 150 grand in cash, you want to buy a $500,000 house, you put 20% down, there goes the 100 grand. You have $50,000 safety net, you're running a small business. That doesn't get you very far. If you're running ads, if you're paying payroll, you want to have some float in the event of an emergency, you're probably better off with the 150 to invest it into your business to grow your cash flows and then buy a house after the fact. Especially when you look at what's happening right now with home prices, they look like they're all-time highs. Why would one go out there to buy in this economy, in this market? They wouldn't, not many people anyway. And so when you look at the facts, you're going to realize a lot is already changing that has not yet been baked into the housing market. In this video, I'm going to break it down and show you exactly what's going on. Please hit the like button when you do. YouTube will share the content, educate more people about what's unfolding in the U.S. housing market. Take a look at this. In July, a report on the fall of Denver and the fall of Ohio, 2 months before the media. In 2023, I predicted federal rent control would come and food price controls would come to combat inflation. The White House is now working to make both of these law.
Passed the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
My incredible team provides tomorrow's news today. Only 30% of all viewers are subscribed. If you subscribe, the algorithm will reward the channel and we can expand and grow and hire more researchers. Thank you for simply clicking the red button to subscribe to the channel. Now on to the video. It's crazy. So breaking. The U.S. home price to median household income ratio is now at 7.2x, a new all-time high. 146,000 views on this. In other words, the average single-family home in the U.S. now costs more than 7 times median annual household income. This is a ratio officially above the 7.1% recorded in 2022 and the 6.8% seen in the 2008 housing bubble. So it's basically, you're assuming a lot more downside risk than the odds of this continuing to go up, up, up. It's pretty slim. It's more likely that we're going to start seeing more home sellers desperately looking for a home buyer, and they're going to be dropping their prices accordingly, at least in most markets. Not all markets, but most. By comparison, a few years ago, before the 2020 pandemic, the ratio was around 5.5x. In just 5 years, home prices have soared 50% materially, outpacing the 17% growth in household income. U.S. housing affordability is still getting worse. Now, this is the curveball. When debt was very inexpensive in 2021, what did people do? They borrowed as much as they could. You remember the old conversation. inflation's the big problem, borrow, 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 borrow. And I agree with that concept, but you have to be able to borrow and pay back when things hit the fan. You have to be able to weather a storm with that debt, not just borrow, borrow, borrow. Things get bad, you default on the bills. And that's what a lot of people are going to be doing inside of real estate, that were buying 4 or 5 cap deals, thinking that rents are going to just grow 20% a year. You have 4.4 trillion in mortgage originations in 2021. The year sees 1.2 trillion in cash out refis as homeowners tap 275 billion in equity, a 16-year high. So they borrowed 4.4 trillion. They pulled out 1.2 trillion. What did they do with that 1.2 trillion? A lot of people just bought other rentals. They just, they bought other houses. They just thought that the party was never going to end. They bought a truck. They just spent. Now all of this is coming to roost, right? Look at this. They say that home ownership rate in America, on average, I would say is probably 60%. Most of these states, with the exception of District of Columbia, 43%. You have some at 79%, but most of these, they're about 60%, 60, 70%. So when you have the housing market in a very, very delicate position, you have the economy, in the eyes of consumers, changing rapidly. You have this from Bloomberg, saying consumers are seeing unprecedented uncertainty in the years ahead. What do you think this is going to do for a home seller or for a homeowner that doesn't have the float? They don't have the liquidity to get through a storm. It's going to push them off the edge. This is also from the University of Michigan. So everything is stable here, right? Everything's stable, and then boom. Here, interest rates are simply too high for small businesses struggling with inflation and tight credit. That's why employment picture is weakening, and also why the bond market expects lots of Fed cuts next year, per Bloomberg. Now, when you look at this, worse than 2007, U.S. prime rate in real terms, small business funding, right? When you look at what percentage of people actually work for small businesses, so there's 33,185,000 small businesses in America. Small businesses employ 61.7 million Americans, totaling 46% of private sector employees. From 1995 to 2021, small businesses created 17.3 million net new jobs, accounting for 67 or 62.7% of net jobs since 95. So when you're seeing these small businesses getting pushed to the fire, you're seeing over 40% of small businesses unable to pay their rent last month. What are you going to witness? You're going to witness an employment rate continuing to grow. The unemployment rate is going to continue to grow, and you're going to witness people being forced to sell off assets to try to weather a storm. Because a lot of the duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes are owned by small business owners or by people that work for small businesses. So they say that MetLife Insurance, CNBC, all the big articles are saying that we are going to see a scenario where institutional investors are going to own 40% of the entire U.S. housing market in the next 5 years. And so how's this going to happen? I think it's going to be with deteriorating property values, and we're going to likely see a deteriorating job market where consumers are going to be forced to walk away from the assets that are connected to the 4.4 trillion in loan originations over the next 12 to 24 months. I think things are going to get pretty nasty. When you see the big companies like Meta and Intel and Salesforce cutting jobs by the tens of thousands, it's saying something. Volkswagen, they announced, this is the 17th, so it feels like a year ago, but it was only a week ago. They announced that they're going to be laying off 15,000 jobs. Then there's even reports saying that it could be as high as 30 to 100,000. But they debunked it, saying, look, they deny this, it's not going to be 30,000. But multiple sources are saying that it's going to be 30,000. Are we going to see this? Are we going to see these companies laying off 10, 15, 20, 30% of their entire workforce? And if they are, could you imagine what small businesses would be forced to do if they can't access credit liquidity? And what about the people that have debt obligations that are associated to the incomes from working or owning one of these small businesses, right? It's just, I don't see a way around this. And I think these large institutional players are getting ready for this, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them to acquire tons of assets. It says youth unemployment is rising. The U.S. unemployment rate for people aged 16 to 24 jumped to 9.7% in August, the highest level since June of 2021. By comparison, the national unemployment rate is at 4.2%, near a 3-year high. Since April 2023, the youth unemployment rate skyrocketed by 3.1 percentage points. Such a material increase usually occurs during an economic downturn. Currently, 16% of 18 to 24-year-olds are neither employed nor enrolled in high school or college, according to Fed data. When the labor market deteriorates, the youth are usually the first to feel it. So you see what's unfolding with youth. You see what's happening with corporations. You see what's unfolding with small business owners. Homeowners can't sell their properties, and a 50-year high in apartment construction all coming to a head at the same exact time. The big question is, how do we avoid this storm? Is it something that we can avoid? I personally don't think so, but I believe that great wealth is found inside of chaos, and I think we're walking into a period of chaos. If you are a renter right now, maybe you're a business owner, you work for a business, it's a great time to hoard cash, a great time to get out of high interest rate consumer credit card debt, to open up other banking relationships, and because some banks and some credit companies and credit unions, they're going to begin slashing limits as defaults continue to soar. It's hard to predict which ones will do what. So the more relationships you have, the better credit score you have, the less consumer debt you have, the more cash you have. All of these things, all these chips you could stack in your favor, you should do it because there's going to be a lot of opportunity out there, and a lot of people are simply going to be forced to sell off assets at the wrong time to the people that are prepared. What do you think about this situation, this entire scenario? What are the odds that every single material fact in the economy is pointing to one net outcome? Let's talk about this below. And if you'd like to fix your credit, we would love to help you at my company, greatcreditfast.com. That's greatcreditfast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative or derogatory items in your credit report, go to greatcreditfast.com, click the link in the description just below this video, schedule a free call for tomorrow. Catch you next video.